Well, good evening, good evening, good evening. I want to welcome you to Word on Fire this evening. I tell you what, it's a good day to be alive. I want to say once more and again, Happy New Year to everybody that's here. KB Browns, I see you driving home, and I appreciate you for popping in while you're riding that train ready to go home. I'm sure that you are. At the end of the day, I appreciate you for being here with us on tonight. Now, to everybody that might come in a little bit later, I appreciate you as well for being here. We're working on getting everything up and running today, and I think I'm in all the channels. For those that are out there in accepted.online.church, you all are with me tonight. So I appreciate you for being here. Mad love to you, mad love to you, mad love to you. Let's do this. I'm so excited. You can put in your prayer requests over there. You can chat. You can do whatever you need to do, comment and talk with me in the accepted.online.church platform. And then, of course, we have all of our other platforms that are here. And so we're good and happy to see you as well. Now, you know, we are studying from The Complete Sayings of Jesus by Arthur Hinds, Hinds. And all it is, as I've said before, some of you are going to purchase the book and follow along with us as we go. So that being said, for those that have purchased that book, and I don't make any money off of that. That has nothing to do with something that I'm trying to accomplish, some kind of income or whatever. It's just a matter for those that would like to be able to follow along in the text. You are welcome to do that. Tonight we are, let's do a recap. We started with the birth of Jesus. And we talked about how Herod was after the child, and we saw Joseph take the young baby and go into Egypt and stay there until those that wanted to kill the baby were dead. Then we saw Jesus the following week. We talked about Jesus coming to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover with his parents, and there he got caught up. Children, he got caught up, and he was excitedly mystifying them with his wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And while the parents had gone home, Jesus was nowhere to be found in the number. And we see him at the age of 12, and we talked about the reality that a bar mitzvah and a bat mitzvah takes place at the age of 13, where in the Jewish culture, that is the age of accountability, if you will, where those individuals are considered to be adult and no longer the parent's responsibility spiritually. Excuse me. And Jesus was not quite there yet at the age of 12. And he still, even though he was fully God, he was also fully man. He still had to abide by the constructs and confines of his natural life, which, again, he was born of a woman, just as any man or woman has to be. He was born of a woman, and we find him not trespassing in the earth, but he came into the earth the same way that every other man, woman, boy, and girl does, born of a woman. However, it was immaculate conception, because that was conceived of Mary, he was conceived by the Holy Ghost, seeing that she knew not a man. Then we see coming on and identifying Jesus after saying to his mother and father, "Wist ye not that I must be about my father's business?" Well, but you're out of order, because you're still under our direction. You're still under our care and accountability and responsibility. So we see no more of Jesus until after the Bible says, and Jesus went down to Nazareth, and the young child grew. And so we identify that even in our spiritual journey, there is that space and place where we too have to grow and develop and come into another level and come into another place of developing our maturity, our process. And I'll say it, and you'll hear me continue to say this over and over again as we take this journey. You've got to go through the processes. You cannot jump over a certain process and go to another place. I really feel like this is a lot of the problem that we see going on in our spiritual journey and community right now, because people do not want to go through the process. You have people that come in today and they are a star and a wonder today, having gone through absolutely positively no process, no maturing, no anything. And unfortunately, this has seriously plagued the church, the ecclesia, not the temple, not the body, not those that are spiritually connected. But as far as the ecclesia, it has really, really wreaked havoc in the church, because at the end of the day, we have a lot of immature people, a lot of those that have gone through no processes whatsoever. And unfortunately, many of those individuals find themselves in leadership roles. Now, as we came on through that teaching, we see Jesus being baptized in the River Jordan, and we see the humility of John the Baptist. And we see how John feels like he is not worthy to, as he said, lace your shoes. I shouldn't even be able to tie your shoestrings. And Jesus says to him, suffer it to be so now. Now we see, if you will, a comparison of a Jesus who at the age of 12, I'm sure he was smelling himself. I'm sure he was feeling some kind of way, that he had the doctors, he had the scribes, the Pharisees, he had the learned and the wise men mystified by his ability to talk in wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And I'm sure that probably felt good at 12 years old to the flesh. And we see him having to develop to a level where he's able to come in humility, with humbleness, and say to John, his cousin, suffer it to be so now, because we've got to fulfill the law of Christ. So we see that maturing process that knows how to be humbled down. And I think that is a very, very safe place to start when you start talking about processes and maturity. My dad used to say, when he was preaching, he would often bring up the point between the wheat and the tares. And what he said so frequently, and this always stuck with me from my childhood, and that was that wheat actually had grains of fruit on it. It had grains on it. And so when you looked at the comparison between the wheat that had grains and fruit on it and tares which had none, even though they looked alike, the weight of the wheat would cause the wheat to bow and bend over, meaning the humility was there. Whereas the tares, which had no fruit and had no weight, would stand upright and erect. And he said, when the wheat became mature, you could easily tell the difference between the wheat and the tares, because the wheat with that grain, with the weight of the grain, would begin to bow down and humble itself, where the tares would be standing upright, vertically erect, because they had no weight, they had no substance, they had no fruit. So I loved when he would break that down and share that in his preaching and teaching ministry. I loved how he would bring that point out. So with that, again, I want to say, we see Jesus, who was not allowed to just develop up as a tare. And for anybody that doesn't know, when you talk about the wheat and the tares and wheat do look alike. But again, that key significance is that wheat literally has grains of fruit on it, and it will begin to bend over or bow down, if you will. So that is for anybody that maybe did not know the idea and the understanding of the wheat and the tares and the comparison, and the idea that the wheat on it actually caused it to have a different posture. Can I put it like that? When you have fruit, when you genuinely have fruit, you will have a different posture, and that posture is one of humility. So that's what we saw when Jesus was baptized in the River Jordan. And of course, the Spirit of God descended like a dove and said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Now, before Jesus gets out and about, and get started moving forth in his ministry, we see him after he is baptized, driven by the Spirit. And I want to emphasize that he wasn't just wandering and flapping in the wind. He was driven by the Spirit into the wilderness. Now, I do want to make this point as well, because I hear this taught erroneously often. And I think, because people don't have an understanding of the land and the lay of the land. And when they say wilderness, they envision this idea of almost like a desert. But a wilderness is just that. If you take the key word and the root wild, W-I-L-D, you have all things wild out there. It's not just a matter of he's in some desert place, but he's literally in the wilderness. And I also want to emphasize that point as well, because when we talk about him bringing his flesh under subjection, it's not that he's not eating because he's in the desert where there's no food. I want to emphasize that, because sometimes we miss some critical points that make a difference in the telling of the story. He wasn't just out there in the wilderness, if you will, where there was, or actually in the desert where there was no food and barely any water. He was in a wilderness. Now, a wilderness is literally overgrown and it's full of wild animals. Okay, so let's understand the difference between a desert. He was not in the desert. He was in the wilderness. I emphasize that because he could have gotten water. He could have gotten food. He is literally bringing his flesh under subjection. It's not him in a location where he has no other choice. That's key, because there's a difference between you and I bringing our flesh under subjection and us just being somewhere where we don't have access to something. Hello, let's understand that. There's a difference between you and I bringing our flesh under subjection and us being somewhere where we just don't have access to a thing. So there is a development of character. There is a development of willpower. There is a development of determination. There is a development of tenacity. And again, I'm going to keep bringing this point that we need to develop in a process. We need to develop in our processes. So he's not just out here where he doesn't have. That's where fasting came from. KB Brown's he wasn't the first to initiate it, but this is something that he did before he ever went out into his public ministry, because it's necessary to be able to bring your flesh under subjection. Now, that's something that I promise you. In these days and times, KB, folks ain't trying to bring their flesh under subjection. Honey, flesh is out of control. Flesh is in control. Flesh is just fleshing. So when you start talking about this concept of being empowered to go out and do what it is you're called to do, there is a process where you need to be able to bring your flesh under subjection, meaning you need to be able to have willpower. You need to be able to have the power to say no. You need to be able to have the power to obey. You need to be able to bring yourself into a place where you are not controlled by your lusts of the flesh, but you are able to control those lusts. Now, even if I go into, and this is spiritual, and I'm not gonna omit this part, because some people are like, oh, I'm not getting ready to do all that. That's old school. Well, that's why people cannot really move and develop spiritually, because they will not develop themselves in the area of bringing their flesh under subjection. Now, and that flesh coming under subjection, I'm not going to tell you what you need to bring it under. I'm going to say, that's where I say anchor the core, KB. That's where I say anchor the core, anchor your core to God. And so what are you bringing yourself under subjection to? Whatever God is telling you to do, not man, not the traditions of man, but whatever God is telling you to do, you need to be able to execute that with obedience. You need to be able to execute that with control of your flesh. So we see Jesus before he ever goes out in public. And I'm going to stress that again, because what is part of the problem that we have going on right now in so-called Christianity, we have people out here running amok who have no control of their flesh, none whatsoever. Honey, flesh is riding, driving, and everything else. And it's unfortunate because these are the individuals that end up in leadership. And if the blind lead the blind, everybody's going to the ditch. If the leader can't control the flesh, if the leader cannot have willpower and stay-to-itiveness and tenacity and discipline, the key word, there's one of the things KB Brown's, my father, and I love his old books, and he was a phenomenal pastor and preacher. Good evening, Rebel. I see you. It's good to see you in the house. Mad love to you. KB, my father was a phenomenal preacher, but my father was a reader of books. And even from my youth, before I ever dreamed that I would be in ministry, I used to go and raid my father's books. And one of the books that he had that I absolutely loved, and those old books were great, it was called The Disciplines of Life. The Disciplines of Life. And basically, it deals with this concept. Good evening, Shelly Thunder. So much mad love to you, and Happy New Year to you, fam. Come on in here. But KB, the name of the book was The Disciplines of Life. And this is the whole essence behind fasting. And I can promise you 100% of Christians today do not believe in fasting. And I'm not even going to say Christians, because there are a lot of other faith traditions outside of Christianity that are very committed to fasting because they understand the need to be able to bring the flesh under subjection. They understand the need that I can't just be out here wild and out of control. They understand that there has to be that level of discipline. And the one thing about The Disciplines of Life, I love that book. And in that book, it takes the very essence of the idea that the root of disciple is discipline. How can you be a disciple when you have no discipline? And that's a disciple of anything, not just a disciple of Jesus. But again, as I said, there are many faith traditions that move and operate in fasting. And the whole idea, again, is to bring your flesh under subjection, to have and operate in willpower, and to be able to have tenacity and the ability to do or not do a thing. And again, I'm going to keep saying, based on what God is telling you to do. I'm not trying to get into traditions of men, and I'm not trying to get in so-and-so said. I'm really in the anchoring the core mindset. I'm connected and communing with God. And I'll tell you this, KB, and I appreciate you for asking that question. I, as a young person, now our church had a fasting ritual. We had days where we fasted, and that's fine and that's good. I don't have anything negative to say about that. I would find myself, even as a child, even when I was young, because I had a journey with God, and I had a relationship with God even predating what we call going and getting saved. There was just something spiritual that I had a relationship with God. I really did. And I would find myself fasting, and I would put myself on fast. And so at the end of the day, don't ask me why, and I'm sure it had a lot to do with why and who I am today. But even as a small child, and this was not ritualistic fasting, because like I said, in the church that I came from, they fasted every Tuesday, every Friday. But it wasn't a matter of that. I felt compelled in my spirit, in my relationship with God, where God would put me on a fast. And sometimes I'd actually be in the fast when I realized, hey, I'm on a fast. I would already be into it. It wasn't something legalistic. It wasn't something ritualistic. It was in my spiritual walk. And I would pull away, and I'm telling you, those were times when God would speak to, and my parents were utterly amazed, because they'd be like, "You fasting again?" I'm fasting. And it wasn't the legalism, it wasn't the ritualism, and they never pressed me. They never pressed me. They never questioned me. They never, none of that. They whenever I was on a fast, once they knew, and it wasn't, I was taught, you don't go out and tell folks I'm fasting, so everybody knows that you're fasting. It was a matter of, you're not going to tear up your face and look like, "Oh my God, I'm starving to death," or to let all the people know I'm on a fast, because as the Bible said, you got your reward already. If that's the only reason why you're doing it, so people can pat you on the back and acknowledge that you're fasting, you already got your reward. But that's not what fasting is about. So I'm telling you, when I look back over my life and I see how there have been mental toughness, times where I had to have mental toughness, times where I had to have spiritual tenacity, times where I had to really, really press for my life, press. I can attribute a lot of that to the discipline of fasting. I really, really can. And so at the end of the day, there's something that is developed, and it is also a spiritual connection. It's not just doing without food, because I'm not the type, I don't get hungry. So it's not like, "Oh my God, I'm about to fall out and faint, I got to eat." That doesn't faze me. But it would always, and let me say this, even to that, as a child, I love TV. I love the telephone. So since fasting from food did not faze me, I was inspired to give up the telephone, give up the television. Something that I was really connected to, something that I was fasting from. It wasn't just a matter of fasting from just the food, which I did, but I also fasted from those things that I loved that seemed like I could not do without. And that was the telephone and the television. And when I tell you, it was in those seasons and times that God would, a lot of the stuff y'all hear me teaching and talking about now, God taught me and showed that stuff to me as a child. I promise you. And it was in that space of bringing my flesh under subjection and communing with God. I'm telling you, that's where God spoke to me. So, I share that here because that's where we are. We're in Matthew, the 4th chapter, verses 1 through 11, Mark, the 1st chapter, verse 13, and Luke, the 4th chapter, verses 1 through 13, for those that are following along in the complete sayings of Jesus. But, I'm going to share that, and everybody doesn't fast. Like I said, probably 100% of Christians nowadays do not fast. And most of them don't even know what fasting is. So I just want to emphasize that. But I can say from that emphasis, I understand why Jesus fasted before he went into his public ministry, because it's preparatory. There's a preparation that takes place. Mind, body, soul, spirit, emotions. There's a preparation that happens in fasting, that it's a spiritual thing. That's all I can say. It is a spiritual thing. And for those that engage in it and have done it not for people to know and not out of ritual, I'm telling, yes, you can actually fast from Twitch. You can fast, and Rebel, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times you just realize without even paying attention. And that's what I want to say. That's the fast that God has called, not the ritual, not because somebody said so, but I promise you, there were time after time after time that I was into the fast in the spirit before I even realized I was fasting. And I promise you, that's the truth. But when I tell you, God would speak to me and I would see things manifest naturally and spiritually, supernaturally. So I'm telling you. So for those that may be inquiring or wondering about fasting and the power of fasting and how to fast and all of that, I am a believer because I have experienced it. I've experienced the power of fasting. I've experienced the power of my ministry in fasting. And again, not in ritualism, and not so that people can know and I'm face all tore up and I'm, no. It is a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual connection. And as Rebel said, you can actually be into it before you unknowingly, before you actually realize that's what's going on. But one way that I will tell you, God will begin to speak to you. Just like here. If we look at Jesus, when Jesus was led of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil, to be tempted to live backwards. I say EVIL is LIVE backwards. When he was tempted and when he was driven by the Spirit, and I'm going to make that point again for those that came late. He wasn't in a desert where there was no food and water. He didn't have the opportunity to eat and drink. He was in the wilderness. The wilderness is overgrowth with wild animals and everything else there. That's what a wilderness is. Don't confuse the wilderness with the desert. The desert is no opportunity, limited food, limited water. That was not the situation. He was in a wilderness where there was an overgrowth and all kind of wild animals out there. So he had opportunity to eat if he wanted to, but that was the discipline. He was in the wilderness for 40 days and was with the wild beasts. And I want to underscore that because that's why, again, because I've heard this preached so incorrectly, like Jesus was out there in the desert. It was not a desert. It was a wilderness. And even the emphasis, he's out there with the wild beasts and the overgrowth. In those days, he ate nothing. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungered. And then the tempter came to him and said, if you be the Son of God. So this whole essence of trying to prove yourself. Listen, deliver yourself from the expectations of people and trying to prove who you are to the people. No, ma'am. No, sir. I don't care if they don't believe on you. I don't care if they call you Beelzebub and everything but a child of God. I had one that came out of my ministry that left my ministry telling folks I was a witch and I was this and that and the other. Baby, I'm not moved by that. I don't care who called me a witch. I don't care who called me Beelzebub. I know who I am and I know what I'm called to. And you will have these places where you're challenged on whether or not I'm going to prove myself. If you be the man of God, if you be the Son of God, you live by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. So you say, I want you to command these stones to be made bread. And Jesus answered him, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word. So he's manifesting. And again, I'm not going to give into the flesh. I'm not going to give in to what people expect me to try to prove to them. And I tell people in a heartbeat, y'all can accuse me of lying. I don't have nothing to say. Y'all can accuse me of this. You can accuse me of that. I'm not going to waste my breath because I have nothing that I have to prove to you. The only person, the only entity that I'm concerned about when I walk this journey is knowing that God knows me and that I'm in right standing with God. I don't have to worry about whether you believe me or not. And I'm not going to, my mother used to say, I'm not going to waste my breath because I'm going to need that breath one day. And I wish more of you would take that position because we spend so much time, energy, and effort trying to prove to the people. And they already believe what they're going to believe. Ain't no need in you wasting your breath trying to prove anything otherwise because the more you talk, they still going to believe what they believe. Jesus had that position of, I know who I am. And I live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. So yes, I'm hungry, but I'm still disciplined. Yes, I have not eaten, but I'm still disciplined. Yes, my flesh wants to eat, but listen, I'm going into a bigger picture. There's something bigger here. I'm not going to limit and restrict myself by giving into my flesh. So then this is what the tempter comes in Jerusalem, the holy city, on a pinnacle of the temple. Yes, a high place. And what did I say about the wheat and the tares? The wheat, as my father used to teach, the wheat that has grain and kernels of fruit on it, the wheat is going to bend over where the tares are going to stand upright. So this whole haughtiness, this high place, who am I? And I want to show you who I am. He takes him to the holy city of Jerusalem, up on the temple, and says to him, if you be the Son of God, cast yourself down, because he's going to give his angels charge over thee. You going to show the people something. Honey, the angels from heaven going to come down and catch you to keep you in all of your ways, lest you dash your foot against a stone. So at the end of the day, this whole idea of almost like, I'm going to show myself how mighty I am. I'm going to lift myself up in my ego. I'm going to lift myself up in my attitude. I'm going to lift myself up. And at the end of the day, let the people see me. Let the people see the angels come down and catch me up. You know, and this part where it seems so, hey, stirs the soul, worthy Wednesday to you, my brother, nothing but mad love. It's so unfortunate that people put so much stock in what people think of me and trying to prove themselves in front of the people. Baby, we ain't got nothing that we got to prove in front of the people. We do not have anything that we need to prove in front of the people. And getting caught up in haughty and high-minded to try to prove who we are and what are we. Because I'm going to tell you what, while you caught up in all of that energy, you're going to make a fool of yourself and embarrass yourself in front of the people. Because I promise you, just when you get high and lifted up, that's when you're going to come off looking silly. My mother told a story of, and this is a true story, it's not a made up story. There was a preacher that would make fun of all the other preachers when they would preach. He would sit in the pulpit, and even during and after the service, he would make fun of the preachers. Well, the time came for him to preach, and he got up and he's going forth. He's, oh my goodness, he's tuned it up. He's reading from his manuscript. And long about time that he lifted his ear to squall a good one, all of his papers flew off that lectern. All of his papers flew off that lectern, and he was trying to pull himself back together because he didn't know what to say next. He didn't know his notes. He didn't know nothing. And she said, he stood there and he said, brethren, I done failed. And one of the preachers, now this is where it gets a little ugly. One of the preachers that he had mocked and laughed at in the pulpit, my mother said he went right up in his face and pointed his finger in his face and laughed him to scorn. And at the end of the day, even though that may have been some ugly behavior, come on, Jonna. It was the wind versus the words. She said that man said, brother, I done failed. He gathered his papers after the other preachers laughed him to scorn and went and set his happy tail back down in the chair. Now, I'm saying that, listen, he got his papers. You understand what I'm saying? He got his papers. And this is the whole thing, because we're not here to try to impress other people. We're not here to try to make ourselves look like we're all that in a bag of chips, because you will get gone with the wind. Stirs, it was gone. That was the end of that mighty sermon right there. And at the end of the day, it was an awesome lesson in humility. And frankly, my dear, yes, Stirs, yes. So at the end of the day, this whole element of why we feel that we're in competition, why we feel that we have to impress people, why we have to make ourselves look like we're so, as my aunt used to say, how great thou art. That's what a lot of people are singing to themselves. How great I am, how great thou art. And they singing it to themselves in the mirror. No, ma'am, no, sir. So, and at the same time, when I understand there are seeds of greatness in me, but I'm talking about arrogance. I'm talking about narcissism. I'm talking about attitude of feeling condescending ideas and behaviors and making fun of other people and mocking them. It's going to come back to bite you in the butt. every time. And so at the end of the day, we see this same element. Come on, Stacy 546. So much love to you. And thank you for that resub, because we're building something. So, these are the ways we talk about, well, we see this with Jesus, but how does that apply to me? How can I practically apply that to my life? When you see these kinds of behaviors, and when you see, and those attitudes that we all have to watch, if there's something in me that wants to be puffed up, that wants to, hey, everybody look at me, everybody see me. I do say take up space. I do say shine your light on them, but it's your energy and your attitude. It's your energy and your attitude. What kind of energy and attitude are you coming with? If it's arrogance, that's foul. It's foul. If you are stuck on yourself and narcissistic, that's foul. So, but there is a difference. There's a difference between being sure of yourself and a difference between taking up space, and a difference between being self-confident and people that have a foul spirit. I promise you, there's a huge difference. Once I stepped off the track, I stopped trying to keep up with everybody. Come on, stirs the soul. Because at the end of the day, it's not about a competition trying to keep up with anybody else. It's just not. So I hope that is something that you can take to heart, because at the end, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Don't tempt me with trying to prove nothing to anybody. And I'm gonna say this even to this. Come on, DJ Armand, so good to have you. The Pharisee mentality will lead you wrong every time, KB Browns. That Pharisee mentality. DJ Aurora Onyx Heart, mad love to you. Come on in here. I want us to understand, your attitude is everything, people. Your attitude is everything. Yes, I do want you to take up space. Yes, I do want you to be self-confident. Yes, I do want you to know that you have seeds of greatness all in you. But at the same time, I also want you to understand, none of us are better than anybody else. It's not that attitude that I'm better than you. I'm more than you. I'm more spiritual than you. Listen, all of that madness, let's leave that. Let's leave that behind and move on to another place. Then again, we see the tempter coming and saying, listen, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world and all the glory will be yours if you just bow down and worship me. And this part, this in 2024, and hear me when I say this. This is where I want to go with this. Your attitude will definitely determine your altitude all day long, stirs the soul. You better come on with that. This is where I want us to come to a point where stop allowing people to lord over you where you're bowing down to them. Hear me. Stop allowing people, I don't care who they are and what position they hold in your life. Stop allowing people to make you bow down to them. Hear me. I'm going to say this in relationships of all kinds. I'm going to say this, at the end of the day, I'm not getting ready to bow down and worship nobody. And so, what did Jesus say? Listen, other than the Lord thy God, he's the only one I'm serving. So when you come at me with that rank energy of trying to bring me under your subjection, trying to bring me down low and put me under your finger and put me under your foot and make me serve you, and no ma'am, no sir. So this is the place even where I say to people of color, no ma'am, no sir. We not serving anybody but God. And at the end of the day, you're not going to bring me down low and make me bow down and scrape. No, I'm not getting ready to do that. To people, I don't care who they are. Sometimes don't we see this going on right now where we've got this push and pull going on in the church where you got pastors and leadership that have made more or less servants out of these people, and the people are being made to bow down to these individuals like we owe them something. I don't owe you nothing, sir. I don't owe you anything, ma'am. At the end of the day, you put your drawers on just like I put my drawers on. What you're not going to do, and I respect you and I reverence you, but what I'm not going to do is bow down and serve you. Whether it's relationships, some of y'all need to parental hold. Some of y'all got parents that are still got a stranglehold over you. And at the end of the day, it's like, no. You're not going to stranglehold me with the idea of you having birthed me into this world. You birthed me into this world, and you were the means by which I got here. But at the end of the day, you will not lord yourself and hold me at bay and lord over me as a grown adult. And I'm talking to grown adults. I'm not just talking to children. There's a time of process. There's a time of maturing. But some of y'all need to put some of your parents in the proper perspective and stop allowing them to lord over you. Some of y'all in some relationships where people are lording over you in that relationship, male to woman, woman to man. And listen, all of it's not men lording over women. I know some women that control some brother and their significant others. This is not your time to be ruled and dominated by anybody. And at the end of the day, other than serving God, everybody else got to stand in line. So that's where I stand with that. Some of these clergy probably put their draws on different. I'm gonna say stirs the soul. I'm sure some of them do. Good evening, Crystal Method. Nothing but mad love to you. Come on in here. And I appreciate you for being in the room. DJ Aurora, I see you just got out of that type of relationship. Come through. Because at the end of the day, we are not to be lorded over. We are not to be controlled, manipulated, and dominated. And this is the thing. When you start branching out and you start trying to, listen, Jonna CPW is in here, and she sent me something that has, for years, ever since she shared it with me, has been a blessing to me. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Hear me. I told you 2024 is a year that I do want you to focus on yourself. I do want you to focus on your gifts. I do want you to focus on taking up space. I do want you to focus on shining your light on and just letting your light shine. But at the same time, some of you need to stop setting yourselves on fire to keep other people warm. And stirs the soul. This is exactly what preachers are doing from the pulpit. They got their congregations and their membership like pigs with the nose ring. Because I'm gonna tell you, that was one thing that my father raised pigs. So that's what I'm used to. I'm used to the pig pens. And one of the things that I used to watch was when my father and my grandfather would take that utensil down there and they would pierce that pig's nose with that nose ring, because pigs had a tendency when the fences would fall down and they'd run off. The only way you could get those pigs to come back home many times, excuse me, the way we got them to come back home after they had run off from the pig pen, when they got out, as we called it, when the pigs got out, baby, all you had to do was get that nose ring and pull that nose ring. And honey, I don't care if it was a sow, I don't care if it was a boar, I don't care if it was a piglet. When you got that pig by that nose ring, that pig was gonna go wherever you went and wherever you pulled that nose ring. And that's what many preachers, that's what many people in relationships, some of you with your family members, close and extended, they got you with that nose ring, baby. They got you with that nose ring, and they know how to push your buttons. They know how to manipulate you. They know how to get hold of that ring and lead you wherever they want to take you. You don't believe authority exists between spirits. Come on here, but correct me. I'm with you. Listen, at the end of the day, look at Jesus and God. For those that want to look at the Trinity, stirs the soul. You got the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. At the end of the day, you don't see them in a power struggle. You never see the Father, the Son, nor the Holy Ghost in a power struggle. It just doesn't happen, because you understand co-equal. You understand coexistence. You understand no one has to assert or put themselves over somebody else when you're secure and you know who you are. Nobody has to be the greater and the other the lesser. You do not have to diminish yourself to make someone else shine. No, ma'am, no, sir. And if you find yourselves in situations where you've got to be less than, I'm telling you, that is the equivalent of the adversary and the tempter telling Jesus, I'll give you anything you want if you just bow down and worship me. I'll give you anything that you want if you just do what I tell you to do. I'll give you anything that you want. And at the end of the day, it's a game and a lie. Can I say it again? It's a game and a lie. Because no, they're not going to give you whatever you want. They're going to control you, manipulate you, and dominate you and get what they want from you. And then they're going to go on about their business. And at the next time, they're going to come back and pull that ring like, come on, KB Browns. And that's exactly what we used to do with the pigs. And I want you all to get that visual very clear. If you've never seen pigs with those rings in their nose, that's exactly why my father and grandfather and them, I would remember, and you talk about the squealing that would go on. You always knew when it was a day after we got a fresh number of pigs and hogs or babies were born and they were at that point where the little piglets needed to be get that little ring in their nose. Oh, you talk about the squealing that would go on when they put them in them stalls and ran that ring through their nose. But once they got that ring in their nose, you could control them completely and entirely with that nose ring. I want us to understand that is not what God desires or has designed for anybody. You are not here to be manipulated, controlled, dominated, or run. So as we look at, again, how do you get, is that why bulls had, listen, they put those those rings in their noses, stirs the soul, because that's a very, very tender spot. And when you really needed to control and dominate, and lead, if you will, honey, you pull that ring and the fight was over. The fight was over. My father we had a red board. That thing was mean as I don't know what, but baby, you get that nose ring, you gonna get him. We had a big old sow. We had big old fat sows. We had pigs, piglets, you name it. You get that nose ring, you got control of them. So I want you all to understand this is a season and a time where God is saying, I want you to be free. I want you to have perfect liberty. I want you to understand who you are. I want you to walk in your power. I don't want you to be manipulated, dominated, or controlled by anybody. And I like who asked me that, stirs the soul. When you get when you get in the spiritual realm, this whole thing of authority, baby, listen, it's co-equal in power. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, co-equal in power. Not one of those entities tried to outshine, outmaneuver, overpower the other. It was perfect harmony and perfect unity. And this is the place I want us to get to, where we stop subjecting ourselves. Stop subjecting ourselves to unnecessary pressure and behavior. So what did Jesus say? Get thee behind me. Listen, because I'm only serving God. And that, to me, goes back to that point of what I said. Anchor your core. Get connected to God. Get anchored spiritually. And I'm talking about spiritually. I'm not talking about legalism. Again, I'm going to emphasize there is a power in fasting. There is a reason for fasting. And as I said, from my childhood even to this day, I'm telling you, there is a spiritual connection. And I don't do it out of legalism, and I don't announce it to the world that I'm in a fast. I just do it when I do it. And as Rebel said, many times unknowingly, I'm in it before I realize I'm actually in it. But it is very powerful. It's very empowering, and it gives you Again, why? What was the fasting for before Jesus ever went out into his public ministry? Because you need to be able to control and dominate your own flesh. You need to be able to bring your own flesh, your own mind, your own thoughts, your own energy. If you out there out of control, my father used to say this: any tool that flies off the handle and cannot be controlled is a dangerous tool. If I got a hammer and the hammer head is constantly flying off the handle, it's a dangerous tool. If I've got a saw, you can go right down and name all the tools that you want to name. Anything that flies off the handle and cannot be controlled is a dangerous tool. And as we understand our purpose and our design here on the earth, we are here to be the salt of the earth. We are the seasoning. We are the flavor. We are the light. I mean, I can give you all kind of analogies of what we are. But if we are that out of control, we are dangerous. The flesh is the only thing we were meant to control. Come on here, KB Browns. You better talk to me and talk good. It's the only thing that we're meant to control. And we're living and experiencing a generation that has no control. So at the end of the day, when I look at Jesus's fast in the wilderness, and I'm going to bring it up again, it was not a desert, it was a wilderness, because he exercised self-control and willpower. He exercised determination. He exercised the ability to keep my mind, body, emotions, and flesh under subjection, and for me to control it, not for it to control me. That's what he manifested. That's why Peter had to be taught how to harness the passion that was within him, KB Browns. Absolutely. Because I don't care how passionate you are, if that passion is out of control, if that passion cannot be harnessed by you, that's the only thing that you are meant to control is your flesh. If you cannot control your flesh, once more and again, you are a dangerous tool. And Jesus had to go through this process of discipline before he ever went out in his public ministry. Don't get it twisted. And I said it before, I'll say it again. This is much of the downfall that we currently have, because we have people that are undisciplined, immature, and out of control that are in leadership. And so when you have that in leadership, if the blind lead the blind, everybody's going to the ditch. So at the end of the day, before Jesus stepped foot anywhere to work one miracle, before Jesus, what did we see? He humbled himself to allow himself to be baptized by his cousin John. Then immediately he was driven. Again, he humbled himself. I'm going to keep saying that. Humility. Because that's one of the indicators when you are not mature and you're out of control, you lack humility. So he humbled himself and allowed himself to be baptized by his cousin John, and then was immediately driven out into the wilderness to learn how to bring his flesh under subjection before he ever went out and worked one miracle, healed one body, or preached one word. After Jesus had proven himself and the ability for him to control his own flesh, his own mind, his own thoughts, his own urges. Once he had done that, what was the last verse? Then the devil left him. You got to pass the test. You got to mature. Am I talking to anybody? There's a scripture that says, resist the devil and the devil will flee from you. And again, when I talk about evil, E-V-I-L, it's L-I-V-E backwards. E-V-I-L is L-I-V-E backwards. When you get to a point where you are maturing and you are developing and you are growing and you're going through the necessary processes without trying to jump from first floor and the next thing I want to be on the 10th floor, how great I am, how great thou art. No. You got first floor, then you got the second floor, then you got the third floor. Then you might even have a mezzanine. You might even have a landing before you get to the next floor. But you got to go through the processes. You cannot just jump from here to there. And herein lies the problem of modern spirituality. We do not want to go through the process, but you have to. You have to. So listen, we're all still a work in process, KB Browns, and the getting the ability to not fly off the handle is something that many of us need to work on. And it can be, it's like, okay, I've accomplished it at this level, but then as I go higher and hit that next level, I might have to conquer that again at that level. And then I may conquer it there, and then I elevate, and then I might have to conquer it again on the 4th floor, and then get to past the 4th floor, and I go through all the steps, and then I get to the 5th floor, because at that level I have to learn how to subdue it at every level, lest I shipwreck, lest I get out here and get toe up from the flow up. And we be talking about, like that preacher, brethren, I done failed. I have failed. It has to be that process and constantly bringing that flesh under subjection. So I hear you, Shelly Thunder. Catch us on the wrong day. But listen, this is what I want us to understand. That wrong day may be the day. And I'm not saying that with like, I'm not trying to say that with like fear. That's not where I'm going with it. That wrong day may be the day that somebody needs to see me in a certain way. Somebody needs to see me function in a certain way. And this again is why I advocate, y'all do what you want to do. And fasting is not just fasting from food, but just like Rebel said, she found herself fasting from Twitch. Some of y'all may need to turn off Twitch. Some of you may need to fast from the television. Some of you may, like I did as a child, television and telephone. You may need to fast from that. Some of you may need to fast from whatever. There's more to fasting than just food and water. So the idea is to bring yourself into a place where you can control yourself. Bring yourself into a place where you can have the tenacity to press and to keep on moving forward without getting caught up and caught off guard and bent out of shape and flying off the handle, because it can be done. It can be done. And so that's where I want to encourage us, because just the day, and I promise you, because I have been here, I can speak for myself. I've been where just the day that I went off, I mean, I went smooth off, there was somebody there that was watching. And you can't take it back. And you can take years to build your character and have less than 60 seconds to destroy it. Do y'all hear me talking? You can take years to build your character and take less than 60 seconds to destroy it. And I'm talking about, hey, come on. I'm trying to tell you, KB Browns, I'm not playing with y'all. This is real talk, because probably my temper and my patience are my two areas for opportunity. And that ability, KB Browns, to catch myself flying off the handle is always my area of opportunity. But I promise you, just like my dad said, when that hammerhead flies off the handle, do you realize how much damage that hammerhead can do? Loose off the handle. Do you understand the words that are coming? When that hammerhead flies, and God forbid that it's a sledgehammer, because honey, sometimes listen, KB Browns, Joanna G, good evening to you. Good evening. So much love to you. There have been times, KB Browns, where I had it wasn't just a regular old hammer, it was a sledgehammer. And that joker got loose. That sledgehammer got loose. And you talk about folks being devastated. And that's the part. That's the part that at the end of the day, even though I say that and I laugh, there's still that grieving part that somebody got bludgeoned by that sledgehammer head that got loose from me. And I mean that sincerely. There are times my heart is grieved. My heart is grieved for the times that my sledgehammer head got loose and folks got bludgeoned. And many times, this is the thing. I want you all to think about this in the way that I'm saying it. And I'm using this analogy because I want you to see it. More times than not, it's the innocent people that are standing there that get bludgeoned. Do you understand the words that are coming to my mouth? Didn't somebody say, my rod and my staff stirs, but not to beat them down, So, and hear me when I say this, more times than not, and I want you to think about this, because it is, some of us may need to fast from some of the words that come out of our mouths. I mean, I'm just saying, it's usually an innocent bystander that's close to you. Hear me when I'm using this analogy. It's an innocent bystander that's standing too close to you that ends up getting bludgeoned by that sledgehammer head that done flew off the handle. And they're just innocently standing and supporting you in your space. So I want us to think about that. We all have to watch our mouth all the time, Stacy 546. We have to watch the fruit of our lips and what comes off our tongue, because once it's released, you cannot take it back. And that's just the truth. Once it's released, you cannot take it back. So as we talk about why Jesus went out and was driven into the wilderness, because all of that had to be brought under subjection before he went out and started dealing with the people. Otherwise, it would have been a hot mess. You understand the words that are coming? If Jesus had gone out ill prepared and not having brought his flesh under subjection so that the devil leaveth him, as the last verse says, it would have been a hot mess. So at the end of the day, I want us to really pay attention. Oh, is that the one reason? Oh, so much love to you. I can't start the whole thing from the top, but I will put it out there. And I got accepted.online.church. I got the right stream. I got everything in correctly today. So it actually is streaming out there. I will put this on demand in accepted.online.church so that you can watch it, as well as some of you have asked about this past Sunday's sermon. I'll also put that on accepted.online.church as well, so you can go out there and watch the replay. Now, I hope that you all have been blessed by this teaching. This is Jesus in the Wilderness. Again, I am teaching from The Complete Sayings of Jesus by Arthur Hinds. And you can go out and get the book if you want to. I'm not making any money off of that. I'm just saying, if you want to follow along, this is the text that we're using, is The Complete Sayings of Jesus by Arthur Hinds. Arthur, Arthur Hinds is the words that I'm saying if you want to get the book. Now, KB Brown's, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Come on with that word. I appreciate that. Anybody that has questions or comments before I get up out of here, because this is a Bible study, and I do want you all to be able, you all have been talking and engaging the whole time, and I appreciate the input that you've been putting in. Come on, KB Browns. Thank you. God is doing this. I appreciate you. So at the end of the day, for anybody that has a question, I do appreciate the questions about fasting that were put in. There were some other questions that were put in. I appreciate you all. And to those that ask questions, let me ask you, did I answer your questions? For those that ask questions, did I answer your question, or did I leave something unclear or unexplained? Let me know before I get up out of here. Did I answer the question. Come on, the gift, Nathan Lamont. I love me some you, baby. I love me some you. Did I answer your questions? Because I don't. Okay, awesome. Okay, stirs the soul. KB Browns, did I answer I think you asked me about fasting. I'm not remembering, but I know. Okay, stirs. Thank you. I don't want anybody to come in and have a question and leave with that question still on your mind. So there we have it. So we've come a ways. Next week, let me look at what we're going to be talking about on next week. I'll go ahead and give you that. For those that would like to, John answers the priests. That is taken from the book of St. John, chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. Actually, just read St. John 1. And that's where we'll be on next week for those that don't have the book that would like to read it ahead of time. You would do real good if you would chat. Excuse me. Come on, KB. Listen, we keep each other. We keep each other on track because you guys are just as much a blessing for me as I hoped that I am for you. Come on in here, MCPA 12, 6 o'clock on Wednesday nights from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And I think I am at my top of the hour. It's 7:03, so we're right there at the time. I will put it, because I did get it. Thank you, Lord. I did get it. It is recording in accepted.online.church, and I will put it up again for on demand for those that may want to go to accepted.online.church and pick it up on demand. I will queue it up where you can see it over there again. This has been an excellent teaching. It's been an excellent class, excellent journey with you all, excellent questions, excellent input. I appreciate you all. And so I hope that this is blessing you, and we're going to continue on. I will be back Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock p.m. 2 o'clock p.m. We'll be on Accepted in the Experience, and we'll continue on. I'm talking about self-aware. We talked about AI, artificial intelligence. And what are we calling artificial intelligence? Any intelligence that is not truth, that is not fact, that you have been taught or embraced as a fact over your life. And I want you to become self-aware. That's what I'm teaching on the beginning, this first quarter of the year, becoming self-aware. So I am going to be coming back on Sunday. As a man thinketh in his heart, as a woman thinketh in her heart, so are he and she. We're going to be taking that to another level, and we're going to be developing that thought. Come on, Michelle. So much love to you. It's good to see you. I love you all. I absolutely positively do. To everybody that's here on tonight, I appreciate you. I hope this Bible study has been helpful to you. Please do not find yourself like that preacher. Brethren, I done failed. Let's just live life, be us, but do not be dominated. Do not be controlled. Do not be manipulated by anybody. And walk your walk, talk your talk, and live your journey. And let's do this. I love you guys. I love every last one of you. Nothing but mad love to you. I'll see you Sunday at 2 o'clock for those that are able to make it back. For those that are not, come back next week at 6 o'clock. I try to start Bible study promptly at 6 o'clock so that we can get in as much as we can of the scripture and ask and answer questions. I love you guys. Have a great night. Peace for your journey.